In this clip, watch how Shahid Kapoor moves on from boring small talk right at the start of an interview. For context, he's talking about being in the film industry for 20 years.
My team kept telling me when I hit 20 years that let's talk about it. And I was like, let's not talk about it. It seems self-indulgent. No, it also makes me feel a bit old. I was like, I don't.
Did you catch it? He was talking about how the question made him feel. Small talk is boring because we get stuck discussing logistics, things like traffic or the weather. But by bringing up how he felt early, he's able to move one step closer to connecting with the other person. Sticking with what to do early in a conversation, the mindset that's helped me the most is that enjoying yourself and joking around early on is the most important thing. One way he does that is through banter. Now, banter can be an entire topic on its own, but one habit that we can learn from him is to agree and expand on other people's jokes. Here he's asked about one of his scenes from Ishq Vishk.
I have a terrible memory, but I'll try my best. I might be the wrong candidate for your show, but I'll still put my best foot forward.
मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है.
ये कौन सी पिक्चर है? हैं? मैं था इसमें? Are you sure that's me?
And watch him do the same thing here again.
What's with the 20 years of experience that you do have now?
Ooh, 20 years of experience. I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran actor.
Legend.
Yeah, bro. Legend. Oh, ledge. OG.
I talk about this in detail in my video on Farhan Akhtar, so check that video out if you're interested. But moving on, after initial small talk is over, that's where you have a chance to connect a little bit more with the other person. People connect over shared emotional experiences. That's why it's a good idea to bring up your emotional experience in conversation. For context, here he's talking about his introduction shot in Ishq Vishk. Watch how he describes that.
But I was very nervous before this shot. Like for me, this shot, I was more nervous before this shot than I was before my Heather speech.
People may not be able to relate to what it's like to shoot a monologue, but almost everyone can relate to feeling nervous before an important occasion. Another one of his best conversational habits is how emotionally expressive he is. Watch here as he's talking about stardom. Notice how expressive he is.
When I'm in front of the camera, when the camera's on, like people should just want to understand what's going on there, you know? Because that's what I got fascinated with when I was a kid. I was just like, what's going on with this guy? Like, what's he doing, man? I don't have any idea what he's doing. This is so cool.
Did you see that he was speaking through a smile? You can copy the surface level habit here, which is to speak through a smile, and that is the fantastic start. But the deeper layer of what he's doing here is that he's talking about something that was fascinating for him as a kid, and he's conveying that emotion as he was talking. One thing to note here is that this doesn't mean you constantly have a smile all the time, just that you bring up topics that you genuinely find exciting. Another way you can connect with other people is by sharing your priorities.
It would be, honestly, it would be who I become at the end of my time. Might be a little selfish to say because, you want to say my priority is my wife, my children, my parents. But eventually, everybody's priority should be who you become at the end of this journey because that's all you take with you.
This, in my experience, is the best way to connect with people because when you share your priorities like this, you automatically draw people with similar priorities towards you. The next step is to keep the conversation engaging. One problem that I've run into is that sometimes people ask questions that have a yes or no answer, and at that point, conversation immediately dies down, and we enter the dreaded awkward silence. Shahid here shows us a way to answer these questions in a way that makes the conversation more fun. Listen to this question.
That phase of your life would have been very interesting, where you went from auditioning or really trying to get into films to breaking into like a first like really commercial cult film.
Now this is a tough question to answer because there isn't a lot to go off of. So he reframes the question and starts talking about how it's a low budget film.
Full of newcomers. We barely had a budget to make that film.
But looking
my
back-
introduction shot, I started shooting at 7 in the morning. It happened at 2:30 in the next morning.
Then he elaborates on it by sharing an anecdote about camera reels.
At that time, there used to be film cameras.
Yeah.
And one reel of film, which is I think about 400 feet, used to be really expensive. It was like some $20,000 or something. So you were not allowed to do multiple takes.
You just have to get it right.
There is a designated amount of film footage that was given by the producer to the director saying on a daily basis, this is how much film footage I can give you.
Yeah.
You cannot come and ask me for 5, 6, 10 more reels because then our entire budget goes for a toss.
But if that sounds confusing, here's a simple structure that I find helpful for answering these types of questions. And that's the BAIT rule. First, you talk about the background, you answer the question, you include what others think, and then you tie it back to the question. Here's a simple example to make it clear. For context, he's being asked about his kids.
Have they watched your films?
Most people here would answer yes or no and then stop. But if you think about how to answer that question beyond the obvious yes or no, two things come to mind: which films did they see and what they thought of those films. So he combines those two details and sets up an anecdote.
You know, the other day Meera, I think this Jab We Met re-released.
Yeah.
So हाँ वो फिर से release की. तो Meera said this is one film where you're not abusing, or you know there's not blood coming out of your nose, or you're not
Yeah.
playing a very disturbing character.
Yeah.
तो इस film के लिए इनको भेज देते
Yeah,
हैं.
this is a good.
So that's the first film they saw of mine.
Oh wow! So what
Yeah.
did they say?
Yeah, they really liked it. They loved it, you know.
He gave the background by talking about Jab We Met was re-released. He included his wife's perspective. He answered the question by saying that they went to see Jab We Met, and then he tied it back to the question by saying that they liked it. Which brings us to the end of the conversation. I like to end a conversation by saying that I had a great time. Obviously, I only say this when I actually had a great time, and sometimes I like to reference something funny that made everyone laugh earlier in the conversation, like this.
I had a blast. Even though we didn't know how to use that laptop. But we got through. Just as how pretty much most of my career was. I never knew I'm going to do it, but I got through. It was nice.
Thank you for watching this video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos.